Every morning at precisely 6:45 a.m., as the sun crept above the rooftops of Oak Ridge, an old golden retriever named Rusty would make his way to the corner of Maple and 3rd Street. He was a regular sight there, thin but not starved, fur graying around his eyes and snout, a faded red collar still loosely hugging his neck. He wasn't a stray exactly, he seemed well fed, and a few of the neighbors said they had seen him come and go from the small brick house on Elm Street. But what made Rusty such an oddity was what he did every single morning without fail. He would trot down the sidewalk, stop at the rusted iron sewer grate at the intersection, and stare down into it. Sometimes, he would sit for hours. Sometimes, he would whimper. And sometimes, if you were quiet enough, you could hear him barking, soft, low, and almost mournful. At first, people paid it little mind. Maybe a rat had run down there once. Dogs were like that, curious and stubborn. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the sight of Rusty became something more than routine, it became unsettling. Children walking to school would stop and whisper. Bikers paused. Joggers ran a little faster past him. Even the mailman, who had been in the neighborhood for 20 years, said it gave him chills. One day, Mrs. Pennington from across the street asked the city to check the drain. They sent someone out with a flashlight, but after a cursory glance, the workers shrugged and said it was just a storm sewer, dry, dark, and empty. Still, Rusty came every day. It was the middle of fall when a young woman named Emily moved into the neighborhood. She was a journalist by trade, recently divorced, and looking for quiet after the chaos of the city and her failed marriage. The house she rented on Maple overlooked the sewer where Rusty sat. On her second morning in the house, sipping coffee by the window, she spotted the dog. On the third morning, she watched him again, now noticing how intently he stared through the grates. By the fifth morning, curiosity got the better of her. She walked over, crouched beside him, and peered into the sewer herself. It was too dark to see anything. "Hey, boy," she said gently, reaching out her hand. Rusty turned his head toward her but didn't move. His eyes were glassy, filled with something deeper than sadness. Emily felt a chill, one that wasn't from the crisp October air. She asked around about him. The neighbors had varying tales, that he had once belonged to an old man who had died, that a child had owned him and then moved away, that maybe he was just a local fixture, no one's and everyone's. But no one knew exactly why he sat at the sewer. Then, one night, Emily heard a strange sound through her open window. It was faint, almost like crying. At first, she thought it was a baby, then a cat. But when she walked to the sewer where Rusty usually sat, the sound stopped. Rusty wasn't there that night. For the first time in months, the dog had vanished. The next morning, he returned, but something was different. His usually calm demeanor was replaced by restlessness. He paced around the grate, whining and scratching at the metal cover. Emily, shaken from the night before, decided enough was enough. She called the local news station and told them about Rusty, about the sound, about the neighbors' stories. The anchor, intrigued by the growing neighborhood mystery, agreed to come out. The next day, a small camera crew arrived. Rusty was there, staring into the drain as always. They filmed for a while, interviewed Emily and a few neighbors. Just as they were about to pack up, Rusty began barking, frantically, urgently. He pawed at the sewer grate, scraping with all the strength in his aging body. The cameraman dropped to one knee and aimed the lens into the darkness. What he caught on camera made him stop breathing for a moment. There were eyes. Two small, frightened eyes reflecting the faint morning light. Chaos followed. The city was called immediately. The fire department came out with tools to remove the rusted cover. A crowd had gathered, all watching with breath held. When the grate was finally lifted, the fireman shone his flashlight into the darkness, and gasped. At the bottom of the narrow concrete sewer shaft, sitting on a ledge just above the water line, was a boy. Filthy, gaunt, shivering, but alive. His arms clung to the ladder rungs bolted into the wall. He was no older than 7. They lifted him out, wrapped him in blankets, and rushed him to the hospital. Rusty didn't budge during the entire process. He sat back a few feet, tail still, ears perked, eyes wide with a strange mix of hope and grief. Emily knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. The boy's name was Alex. He had been missing for almost 6 months. His parents had left town years ago, and he had been in the foster system. Reports would later reveal he had run away from a group home after abuse allegations and, with nowhere to go, had ended up crawling into the sewer to escape. He had become stuck, unable to climb out. He survived by drinking collected rainwater and eating whatever scraps had fallen through the grate, some of which had been dropped, seemingly on purpose, by Rusty. Rusty had known. Somehow, someway, he had known. As more pieces of the puzzle fell into place, the story spread beyond the neighborhood. News outlets picked it up, calling Rusty a hero. But there was one detail that brought everyone to tears. When Alex was asked if he had ever seen the dog before, his small voice cracked as he nodded. "That's my dog," he said softly. "That's Rusty. He was my dog before I got taken away." Records confirmed it. Alex had owned Rusty when he was a toddler. The dog had been left behind when Alex's parents lost custody. Somehow, Rusty had found his way back to Oakridge. Drawn by instinct, by loyalty, or perhaps something more mysterious. In the weeks that followed, Rusty and Alex were reunited officially. Alex was placed with a new foster family, one that allowed him to keep Rusty. Emily kept in touch, visiting often. The neighborhood that had once watched Rusty with curious discomfort now left treats and toys outside their homes. He was a legend. But the real lesson came in the quiet moments. Emily, in a column she later wrote for a national magazine, described how a community had been shaken awake, not just by the miracle of a dog's loyalty, but by the reminder that even in our darkest places, we are not always alone. She wrote of resilience, of the connection between humans and animals, and of the boy who had survived because love hadn't given up on him. Rusty lived another 2 years after Alex was found. He died peacefully in his sleep at the foot of Alex's bed. The town mourned him as if he were one of their own. A small bronze plaque now sits on the sidewalk where he used to wait, etched with simple words. He waited. And he saved a life. And still, on quiet fall mornings, when the wind rustles the leaves just right, people swear they hear the soft padding of paws down Maple Street.